Right now, at this very moment, a freight train is moving through the darkness of Central Asia. No passengers, no fanfare, no CNN cameras. It carries Chinese electronics, Iranian crude, and Russian steel across a distance so vast it would take you 3 weeks to drive it.
The train doesn't stop at the American-controlled shipping lanes. It doesn't pass through a single port where Washington has leverage. When it arrives, it will have crossed 11 countries, climbed over mountain ranges that Alexander the Great couldn't conquer, and threaded through deserts that swallowed entire empires, from China all the way to Iran. This is the new Silk Road Railway, 10,400 kilometers of iron and ambition. It is the single most consequential infrastructure project since the United States built the interstate highway system in 1956. The Americans built their highway to move troops. China built its railway to move everything else. And here is what Washington doesn't want you to understand. The geography is already done.
The steel is already in the ground.
A train is moving, right now, and it changes everything.
This is the story of the road that remade the world twice.
"1,100 years ago, 119 BC, the Han Dynasty court of Emperor Wu, Chang'an, China, the largest city on earth.
1 million people live within these walls, more than Rome, more than Alexandria, more than anything the Western world has yet imagined. A diplomat named Zhang Qian has just returned from a 13-year journey westward, sent to find military allies. Your Majesty, I have returned with news of the Western lands. Rise, Zhang Qian.
He accidentally discovered something far more explosive. An entire world of wealth existed beyond China's western deserts. Zhang Qian came back with 2 things. First, information about wealthy kingdoms hungry for Chinese silk.
This silk is exquisite. We must trade for more.
The Fergana heavenly horse, so superior that Emperor Wu sent 60,000 soldiers to acquire just 3,000.
That insane campaign for horses accidentally opened the corridor that would become the Silk Road.
Within a generation, Chinese silk was appearing in Roman markets, a bolt bought for copper coins sold for its weight in gold.
The road was never actually about silk. What moved was everything: paper, gunpowder, Buddhism, Islam, the Black Death, mathematics.
The road was the internet of the ancient world. It transmitted not just goods, but ideas. And ideas were far more dangerous than any cargo.
For 1,500 years, this road was the spine of the global economy. Every great power understood: control the road, control the world. The Parthian Persia built grand cities along the path. The Tang dynasty controlled the eastern markets.
Then, in 1453, everything changed. Constantinople falls. The Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II rides into the Hagia Sophia.
The overland route to China and India, 30% of European economic activity, has just been severed. Venice and Genoa's ledgers show catastrophic losses as the Silk Road goes dark.
The closure didn't just inconvenience merchants. Black pepper, worth more than silver, doubled in price. It terrified Europe.
Columbus wasn't looking for America. Vasco da Gama wasn't a romantic explorer. They were solving a supply chain problem. Blocked by the Ottomans, they charted new routes for spices and profit.
September 7, 2013, Nazeb University, Astana Karakosiksters. A kind of Chinese resident is about to change history. We should take development in Cyprus and Vietnam Pro.
He calls it the Silk Road Economic Belt, the most ambitious infrastructure project in human history.
The Western press barely notices. The New York Times runs a short wire story on page A14. Washington files it under regional initiative, a story of global importance relegated to the shadows of bureaucracy.
This was a catastrophic intelligence failure.
Over $1 trillion, 150 countries, 4.4 billion people, rewiring the global economy away from American-controlled sea lanes.
At its heart, a single railway from Urumqi through Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Iran to the Turkish border. 10,400 kilometers, roughly the distance from New York to Tokyo, crossing the Gobi Desert, the Tian Shan Mountains, the Kazakh Steppe. To grasp this scale, let's compare it to a US map, and across the Pacific from New York to Tokyo. Engineering any single section of this would be a generational achievement. China is building all of it, simultaneously, split screens, simultaneous construction scenes across multiple countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Iran, all at once.
The road was born. Now it is being reborn. And the question is whether Washington noticed before it was too late. He called it the Belt, the land route through Central Asia, and the road, the maritime route through the Indian Ocean. Together, they would give China two paths to every market on Earth. The US had controlled one. China was building both. The geography of power was being rewritten, and the ink was made of steel.
For 2015, the Xinjiang-Kazakhstan border at Korgos, temperature minus 27 degrees Celsius. Workers in thermal suits battle the extreme cold, their breath freezing the air.
In the frozen pre-dawn darkness, thousands of workers are laying track across a landscape so featureless it appears to have been erased.
Тяни на Джонтише Engine, дай Тинтинчу. Он говорит, что понял. Безопасность на первом месте. Проверим чертежи перед началом.
China built 3,000 kilometers of high-speed rail in 2016 alone, more than the entire US has ever built in its entire history. The US has approximately 57 kilometers of true high-speed rail. China has over 45,000.
But this railway isn't about speed, it's about something more dangerous: connectivity. Connectivity spreading like a web across Eurasia.
The line runs through Korgos, a city that didn't exist 15 years ago, now processing more containers than the port of Los Angeles.
There is a technical problem most people don't know about: gauge. Chinese rail is 1,435 millimeters. Soviet-built rail is 15 and 20 meters. This 85 millimeter difference is a major barrier to international rail connectivity.
Every train crossing from China must stop and have its entire undercarriage, the wheel bogies, physically swapped out. Hydraulic hoists lift the car, while workers change the entire undercarriage. This process takes 2 hours per train. China built a facility processing 100,000 containers per year, operating 24/7. In temperature swinging 80 degrees Celsius between summer and winter, from minus 40 to plus 40. At the Korgos Gateway, the same facility endures these brutal extremes, a true test of engineering.
The G7 pledged $600 billion for global infrastructure, but only 15% has been delivered, leaving a fine billion-dollar gap. In contrast, China has fully completed hundreds of projects worldwide.
When your goal is strategic, not financial, the spreadsheet changes completely. Profit columns are replaced by strategic objectives: geography, influence, trade routes.
The line connects to Kazakh rail at Almaty, threads through Turkmenistan, enters Iran at Sarax in the northeast.
Then runs south and west to Tehran, Isfahan, and ultimately the Persian Gulf ports, without crossing any American-controlled water.
This city, Korgos, is proof of what state investment can conjure from nothing in less than 15 years.
The workers who built it came from 5 countries. The funding came from Beijing. The logic came from 2,000 years of history. A new chapter in global connection.
Steel in the ground. The impossible, done. The completed Korgos facility, perfectly operational. March 27, 2021. A signing ceremony in Tehran. No Western journalists are invited.
A 25-year framework, $400 billion. Oil, gas, petrochemicals transportation, banking, and railways. The deal's components: 400 per discount oil, 25 years.
China will invest. Iran will supply discounted crude for 25 years, reportedly 32% below market rates.
The American sanctions that were supposed to isolate Iran inadvertently delivered Iran directly into China's arms.
Every additional sanction the US places on Iran makes Iranian infrastructure more valuable to China, not less. As US sanctions increase, China-Iran investment also increases, a perfect ironic correlation. Iran is not just a destination on this railway. It is a junction at the intersection of three separate continental rail networks. The Turkish from the west and the Russian from the north all converge on Iran.
Control Iran's railways, and you sit at the crossroads of a Eurasian freight network serving 3 billion people.
A container from Yiwu, China to Istanbul, Turkey. By this railway, 12 days. By sea through Suez, 30 to 45 days. 3 times faster. And it does not pass through any choke point the US Fifth Fleet controls. The Americans built the trap with their sanctions, and then walked into it themselves. This map shows the 25-year deal. Iran is now fully integrated into the Belt and Road. The circuit is complete, rendering sanctions irrelevant.
2022 to present, the Pentagon, the State Department, the National Security Council. A superpower reacts to State Department briefings, NSC Situation Room. The machinery of American power visibly uncertain.
The US response: more aircraft carriers, more missile defense, more freedom of navigation operations, all designed for a military threat.
But the railway is not a military threat. You cannot sink a railway. You cannot intercept it with a carrier strike group.
In 2021, the G7 pledged $600 billion for competing infrastructure. By 2024, less than 15% have been committed, mostly as loan guarantees. In contrast, China has...
In the same period, China completed 46 new railway projects across Asia, Africa, and Europe.
American infrastructure requires profit, environmental review, political consensus, and usually a decade before a shuttle touches ground. Profits first, then the environment. We need consensus on funding. Chinese investment requires a decision from the Standing Committee. The Standing Committee does not hold town halls. Striking contrast, Chinese Standing Committee meeting, 7 men making a decision, versus US Senate in endless debate. Competing with China on infrastructure using American tools is like competing in a Formula One race using the rules of cricket. The railway doesn't need to be profitable to be strategically decisive, just like the transcontinental railways that built the American West. Archival footage, U.S. Transcontinental Railway construction 869, America's own Belt and Road moment. Today, a container terminal in Yiwu, China. 6 a.m. A forklift loads a blue container onto a flatbed rail car. U-ray footage of the percoltaning of forklift volumes. Local tippers inside. 1,200 pairs of children's shoes, 800 laptop bags, 400 electric kettles, and 60 boxes of Christmas ornaments for Frankfurt, Germany. None of the workers loading it know where Frankfurt is. None of them have ever been to Europe. None of them need to. The logistics system knows. From the Kazakhstan-China border, our freight train continues its journey through Almaty and Tashkent and into China at Urumqi. After Lanzhou, it arrives at its destination, Yiwu. It enters Iran at Sarax, bypasses Tehran on the Northern Ring Rail, crosses into Turkey at the Iranian border. It arrives at Marport Terminal in Istanbul in 9 days. From there, European rail takes it to Frankfurt. The journey is complete. It does not pass through Singapore, not the Strait of Hormuz, not the Suez Canal, not one US-controlled choke point.
This is the architecture of a new world order, built one rail tie at a time.
Since 1945, American global power has rested on 3 pillars: military supremacy, dollar dominance, and control of the sea lanes. The railway attacks the 3rd pillar directly. If even 10% of world trade shifts to this land corridor, the calculus of naval power changes.
The countries along the route are not hostile to the US. They are making a rational economic calculation.
China offers railways and access to 1.4 billion consumers.
Washington offers democracy promotion with long lists of conditions.
a contrast of pragmatism and idealism and global influence. Every honest documentary must reckon with the counter-arguments. So here they are. We challenge the evidence looking for flaws in equality or relevance. We identify logical fallacies and consider overlooked consequences.
The Americans still have nuclear weapons, the world's most powerful military, and the reserve currency of the global economy. Several countries, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Zambia, found themselves unable to repay Chinese loans, forced to cede strategic assets. Documentary footage on port Sri Lanka, China resaced.
Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, built with Chinese loans it couldn't repay, was handed to China on a 99-year lease in 2017.
This port deal risks our sovereignty. This partnership brings prosperity.
This is not altruism. This is investment with strategic consequences. Beijing's propagandists prefer not to discuss this.
The railway in Iran faces real engineering challenges. The Zagros Mountains reach 4,500 meters, brutal in winter.
And there is a geopolitical wildcard. A single Iran-Israel confrontation or Saudi proxy war could disrupt the Western corridor entirely. Tension with Iran-Israel conflict, imagery, Saudi-Iranian proxy conflicts, Turkish political instability, the risks are real.
History is full of roads that got blown up. Geography may be destiny, but history is also made of explosions. The Berlin Wall falling, Iraqi infrastructure destroyed, the Suez Crisis, history disrupting geography.
These are real limitations, but they do not change the fundamental equation. The steel is in the ground.
Here is what 2,100 years of history teaches us. The Silk Road has never been about one empire, one product, or one era.
It has always been about the irreducible human desire to connect, to trade not just goods, but ideas, religions, and everything that makes us human.
Zhang Qian didn't walk west for 13 years because the Han Emperor told him to. He kept going because there was always something extraordinary over the next ridge.
The railway China is building is not, at its deepest level, a military project or even a purely economic one. It is the latest chapter in the oldest story on Earth. What happens when human beings refuse to let geography be the final word? The Ottomans closed the road in 1453. The European age of exploration was born. The Silk Road slept for 5 centuries. Now it is roaring back to life, not with camel bells and the smell of spice, but with the shriek of steel on steel. The ancient Silk Road carried Buddhism from India to China. It carried Islam from Arabia to Indonesia. It carried the Black Death. What will this new road carry? We are, right now, in the first chapter of the answer.
If this story made you see the world differently, leave a comment. Does this railway change the balance of power?
Hit subscribe for more stories like this, hidden in plain sight, that will define the next 100 years.